Hey everyone, my name's Eagle. I'm the publisher of No Earth Comics. Usually I'd be doing the Friday roundup right about now, but we've done that for 3 weeks and I've come to the conclusion that it's not really something that I want to continue, but I still want to do the regular video. So today, instead of the Friday roundup, we're going to do a video on world building. And this is something that as writers and creators is very important. And most of what I'm going to be talking about today is going to apply directly to No Earth Comics and the world that we built for that. But you can take some general lessons out of this for any projects that you're working on for yourself. First off, we've got a rather extensive background section for No Earth Comics. I've linked to it in the description, so you can go ahead and check that out after the video. But in there, we've got two different types of background information. We've got a timeline, and the timeline is interactive, and it's set up in a database so that I've got the ability to add to it. And it's actually a really cool little app, and I'm happy to have it on the site. The other thing we've got is basically a interactive wiki. And this not only sets up on a set of pages where each page is a separate article, but it also sets up to where it automatically highlights specific keywords throughout the site, so that if a keyword is being referred to, there's a link to the wiki article. And this is something that it's a cool tool, and we're planning on doing more with it. But right now we've got over 10,000 words written for background for No Earth. And this seems daunting at first, and it's a lot of information to take in. But here comes the kicker. It's just a skeleton. Any writer that comes to us is going to wind up having to do some world building to fit their story into the world that we've already got created. We've got huge blank places. We've got huge places where the map doesn't work. So new maps are going to have to be created. New articles are going to have to be created. New entries in the timeline are going to have to be created to fit specific stories in. So today we're going to talk about how that happens and how world building occurs. And most world building starts with a question or a statement, or basically just a single sentence that leads into something bigger. Now, No Earth is an alternate history world. History did not go the same direction that it went on our Earth. Unlike a lot of the bigger comic book universes, we did not take the step of saying, okay, we're going to pretend like this is the real world with superheroes. No. The fact is that the very act of having superheroes, the very act of having magic, the very act of having any of these special abilities is going to change that world. Now, we go with an old theory that time is a river. And there's not much that individual ripples can do to change the origin of the river or the destination of the river. You can change the course a little bit, but it's always going to find its way back to the same course. And the first basis for the world, well, I'll get into that in another video. But we take little things, such as, at one point in time, I wanted to put giant robots in the world. Now then, rather than simply say, poof, we have giant robots, mechs, battle armor, have fun with it, go for it. No, this doesn't work that way. You need a justification. You need a way that this happened. You need a reason why this developed instead of the way that our Earth developed, where we went with armor and jets and helicopters as our primary weapons. Why would governments put the money into these giant robots? And for this, a lot of No Earth is originally based on open source content. And I've got a video planned on open source content because we do a lot of, not open source, public domain content. We do a lot of, I consider public domain and open source to be pretty much the same thing. So just bear with me, bear with my little faux pas there for a moment. So we do a lot on No Earth with public domain heroes and public domain concepts. So what we wound up doing was War of the Worlds. And this is set in the late 1880s, early 1890s, depending on how different scholars care to classify it. But the concept is H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds. Martians attack, and they come with these huge tripods, and in the book, it's only in England. Although it's implied that it's happening elsewhere, it's mainly in England, because England was the center of the universe for Victorian readers. So we posited that the Martians did a planet-wide invasion. Rather than destroy the premise of the book, we also posited that the British Secret Service wound up developing a biowarfare that would eradicate the Martians. And this is how that particular war was won. What we were left with was all this wonderful Walker technology. And this, coming at the very beginning of the Industrial Age, sets the course for how No Earth's war machines developed. So this alters history from the time that it happened all the way to the modern day, to where in the modern day you have tanks, you have helicopters, you have airplanes, but you also have warbots. And these started out as three-legged imitations of the Martian machines, but now they're two-legged, three-legged, four-legged, tracked, jet, the whole bit. And this is an example of how you can build off of a single desire, a single sentence. I want giant robots. So how does that happen? And this is what we ask that our creators do, is don't just put something in there. Explain it. It doesn't necessarily, the explanation does not necessarily have to make its way into your story, but it needs to make its way into the background information, because sooner or later it's going to make its way into somebody's story. We have not mentioned the Martian invasion in a single comic we've put out. We haven't shown a single warbot in a single comic that we've put out, although they are coming. We've got 2 comics that have warbots coming. We have mentioned tack suits because tack suits are a spin-off of the warbot technology and the trench warfare from World War I. And in fact, we have an entire book, Johnny Reb, that's based around this trench warfare suit of armor in its modern day format. So having the extensive background, having all of the pieces in place makes it easier for writers to create something new, to create something different. Now, this also means that writers have to fill things in. As an example, we have a book coming called Eddie. And Eddie is the god of rock and roll, which means that the writer is having to work with me, the line editor, in order to work out how deity and faith-based powers work within the world of No Earth, because everything she writes is going to be canon for everything that anybody writes after that. And even though we don't need to show everything that we discuss in the comic, we do need to write it down. We do need to have it available for writers and for creators and even for readers who just want to geek out on this stuff to be able to use it in their worlds or in their stories. So this is, No Earth is a shared universe. If you're doing your own universe, of course, you're going to be much more compact and much more compartmentalized in the way that you put this together. But I highly recommend that you have, number one, a timeline, and number two, a wiki. You can do your wiki in Microsoft Word. You can do your timeline in Excel. You can do both of them in Google Docs. It doesn't matter. But as a creator, you need to be able to access this information quickly, because I guarantee you that you will forget something that's important if you don't have it written down, and you will wind up contradicting yourself. Continuity. Okay, I'm the line editor for No Earth. What I do is continuity for No Earth. What I do is making sure that the world stays consistent, that things that we put out are canon, that we don't wind up having to explain why this is different than this, because it's all taken care of ahead of time. This is my job. We have other editors that handle different parts of the editing process, but this is my job, is making sure that the story fits in the No Earth world, and that the story maintains continuity within the No Earth world. So I am pretty much the caretaker of No Earth. I started out as the creator of No Earth. I am no longer the sole creator of No Earth, because every author that is working on this, and even the artists that are working on this, are winding up putting their own visual print on the world. The writers are putting their own literary print on the world. And my job is simply to curate this. So as a creator, what you want to do is you want to do something that's neat, not to you, but to readers. You want to do something that is going to make the readers enjoy what you are turning out. And even if it's something that doesn't get used in your story, the fact that you know it's there is going to change the way you write about it. One of the most impressive pieces of writing ever done for a science fiction book was done by Robert Heinlein, and let me go ahead and say Heinlein's my favorite science fiction author. But Heinlein did a story, and in the first paragraph he's describing a man walking through a camera iris style door. In other words, the different panels move out of the way, and you know that there's a motion detector, you know that there's all of this technology behind it. And Heinlein opened the story with the single sentence, "The door dilated." 3 words. And in that 3 words, we get this entire chunk of technology presented to us. And if we care enough about it, we can figure this out. If we don't care about it, if we're just interested in the story, the door dilated. Move on. And this is the effect of proper world building. This is the effect of the way that a proper world works, is the things in it become. Another example. A few years back, a historical recreation society managed to figure out how boiled leather armor was done. This is something that was so commonplace during the time period that it was being done that nobody thought to write it down, because it was normal. It was common knowledge. And the knowledge died out. And so all of the history books had been, yes, boiled leather, because that was what it was referred to. Cordebolia. But what was it boiled in? How was it boiled? If you try boiling leather in water, you wind up with a shrunken, hard, brittle mess. If you try boiling it in oil, you wind up with something that is not leather. It's not armor. And so the eventual answer was it gets boiled in wax. It maintains its, if it doesn't get boiled for too long or too high a temperature, it maintains flexibleness, but it also gains a hardness that allows it to be used as a rigid form of armor. But that's beside the point. The point is that the technique of doing this was so common that nobody wrote it down. It was just part of the world. And so anytime that you're dealing with world building, you're having to deal with the fact that certain things are going to be common, and what you think of as absolutely marvelous and absolutely wonderful isn't. As an example, I'm recording this right now on a cell phone. Why am I recording it on a cell phone? I don't know. I've got a GoPro sitting over there. The cell phone's easier. The cell phone's got a really good resolution. The cell phone I'm using has a fairly decent mic. So this is all I need. Everybody on the planet just about has one of these cell phones now. They're common. They're ubiquitous. And how many people think of them as a wonderful thing? Answer, hardly anybody. We take them for granted. They are just part of our life. The door dilated. The phone rang. Okay? These are not wondrous pieces of technology to the average person. They're simply their phone. And, they'll tell you, yeah, my phone's my life. But in the end, it's just something that's ubiquitous. It's something that, if you're writing a story set in the modern day, you do not go into a lot of detail about how a cell phone works. You don't go into a lot of detail of which app they're using when they use their smartphone. No, you just, let me check my phone. So this leads us to something new. And this is a concept called Caesar's Palm Pilot. And this is an old literary critique term. And what it means is when you have a specific piece of technology or a specific piece of anything that you've introduced in one of your stories, you have to consider the ramifications of it. The door dilated. Motion detectors. Fast motors. Good building materials. A computer that knows whether or not you need to go through that door. All of these things are inherent in the three words of the door dilated. They're implied. And this is what Caesar's Palm Pilot is. If Julius Caesar is holding a Palm Pilot, think of the technology that stretches back that is needed to make that Palm Pilot work. And this is part of the problem of world building. Let me tell you an example that you may not have realized, or if you're enough of a geek, you've been thinking about it for years. The transporter in Star Trek. They used it as a device so that they didn't have to show a shuttle hitting the planet every single episode. But what does a transporter entail? It entails breaking you down at the atomic level and beaming your atoms through space and reassembling them remotely with no receiver. We got that? Now let's figure out what else that does. That is the ultimate medical cure, because all we need is a record of what your body looked like before you got sick. And we can remove the sickness from your body. You are now immortal. We don't need to keep bunches of different things in extant anymore. We can simply beam them into limbo and reassemble them when we need them. Food stores? What food stores? We simply assemble whatever we want out of the random molecules floating around in the air. You start seeing the problem here? So Caesar's Palm Pilot applied to the transporter, it quickly becomes obvious that this is a world-breaking piece of technology. Oh, we need dilithium crystals. How many episodes depended on dilithium crystals? Well, then we had to invent the fact that you couldn't make dilithium crystals in a replicator. Why not? Because that's a bad plot point. No other reason. So when you're introducing a superpower, when you're introducing a piece of magic, when you're introducing a piece of technology, when you are introducing anything that's out of the norm, you have to consider how this is going to affect your world. What does this do to your world? How does this make things different? In the Marvel Universe, we have PIM particles, we have unstable molecules, we have all sorts of things we have repulsor technology, we have nanotech, we have all sorts of things that have all of this commercial and life-changing potential. And it doesn't happen because the Marvel Universe is set in our world with superheroes. So this is something that the public doesn't benefit from, all of these wondrous inventions that these various superheroes and supervillains come up with. And this goes back to what I was saying about Caesar's Palm Pilot. This, by the way, is a bit of a cop-out, and it's one of the reasons why we so tightly control what appears in No Earth, is that we don't want something that would have obvious commercial potential not being utilized in stories. So world building is the act of saying, what if, or why not, or I want this, and then going back and retroactively changing your world to fit this in. And the more you do this, the further your world is going to get from whatever you started with. But this is just listen, I could do hours on this. So what we're doing here is just a quick little tidbit into the process. We're going to do more of these videos. Basically, I'm not ever going to run out of material to do videos on. But this is something that I'm hoping that we will get more interaction on. When I get this uploaded to YouTube, I will link in several resources in addition to the background section. But thank y'all for tuning in. I appreciate the audience. We are taking care of several things right now. We just hit 52 likes on the YouTube, on the Facebook page this week. I'd like to see that hit 100. I would like to see the YouTube channel hit the 10K views that we need to monetize it. So please like this video, share it, invite people to the page. Do what you can to help spread the word, because we're trying to build something here that is community-based. We're trying to build something here that is for creators as well as fans. And please help us. Thank you very much.